Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Yomapta Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satiguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om. So we had our objector or our student here in this dialogue a few verses back. He presented a complete question to the teacher. No? He wants to know the entire teaching of Vedanta. What is it? He wants to know the the nature and origin of bondage, how bondage is sustained, how liberation is obtained, the nature of the not self, the nature of the self, and how to discriminate between the self and the not self. So we begin today with the verse 17, which covers, this, because I have to open it here to be sure. 27 I get, yeah. We continue from the verse 27. So he wants to know what is the not self as well. The verse 27 says the physical body is born as a result of the karma from previous lives. It is a locus of experience for the individual. And it's made of gross matter, which evolved from the division and recombination of the subtle elements. So this is a different way to present the physical body. So we present the physical body now, not just as a food body or not as something temporal, but we present it from the standpoint of karma. It says that the physical body is the result of karma. It's the result of karma of previous lives. So what does that mean? Oh, sorry, I have to keep looking here to see who is waiting in the waiting room. Ruth, with her breakfast. So the physical body is born. Okay, is born as a result of the karma from previous lives. So it means to say that the very, very body that we gained in life, it is custom designed to our vasanas. The vasanas is what left of the jiva when he ends a birth, when he ends an incarnation. So when we are ending our life, so the subtle body dissociates from the physical body and it shrinks back, so to speak, as a body of vasanas. So it's a mental, emotional energy called vasanas. And this karma, this sanchita karma, these are all the karma that has not yet fructified and it remains suspended. This sanchita karma, it's what brings us back, and this is what is going to be, searching for another medium of experience. So it needs another body. It needs to construct, to assemble another body. Of course, the vasanas cannot do it alone. It needs the intelligence of Maya Ishvara. But it is this energy that is going to custom design. I mean, Ishwara is going to custom design another medium for this Sanchita karma that is hanging there to go back to the field so that it can continue working its karmas, you know. So this physical body is born as a result of the karma from previous life. So we are now the byproduct of that jiva who came before us in our individual soul. Yeah? So in a different language. So we are soul traveling from birth to birth to birth to birth, an individual soul. So the jiva before us, he just left, he was deconstituted, you know, disassembled, but its vasanas remain, and out of these vasanas, so Ishwara has produced another jiva, and hi, here I am the new guy here, you know. So we get these vasanas, we get this karma from the past, and then we start interacting with the field, and we keep, you know, gaining other vasanas, modifying older vasanas. So the beauty about our free will, our intelligent intellect, is that we don't only necessarily repeat the past so that we are caught up with the same set of vasanas. These vasanas, they have the opportunity to be exhausted and modified. We exhaust some vasanas, we modify certain vasanas, we transform certain vasanas. It's not that this process is only up, up, up. We can drop as well, you know. We can work in a way that somehow we decline spiritually. The scriptures make it very clear. The process, the journey of the soul is not an easy upgoing, you know, gradual, you know, we go like that. So this karma from previous life is what is going to be the innate vasana, body of vasana, or vasana load, by which I begin interacting and gaining other vasanas from the interaction with the field in this lifetime. So these new vasanas are going to be a result of what? My actions, which are highly influenced from my previous vasanas, plus the results of this interaction. So we begin constituting and molding a different set of vasanas, karma. It's all about karma, interacting, agami karma, remaining suspended, waiting to be manifest or fructified as once prabhada karma. So it's all karma, you know, moving. And the good news is that we have, due to our intelligent free will, we have the power to influence the the construction or the reprogramming or the programming of our vasanas. So we want to get those dharmic, sattvic karmas, so that we have all these good punya sanchita karmas, you know, and then they start fructifying, you know, and then we have a good life, we have a good karma. And then our actions, as we interact with the field, they are good action, they are sattvic, dharmic actions as well. So this is the way that we go about, you know, processing this what we call this refinement or purification of our subtle body, you know, because we have this possibility. But this physical body, we are talking more about the physical body, although the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body, all the three bodies, they are within the category of the not self. Same way, equally. They are equally the not self. It's all about matter. As we know, matter and energy are the same thing. It's just a question of how dense or how subtle this energy is, right? So this physical body is born out of the result of the karma from previous lives. And it's a locus of experience for the individual. So it's a locus, it is the vehicle, you know, the medium of experience for the individual. And it is made out of gross matter. Now it goes into the physical constitution of the physical body. So we are presenting the not self first. At this verse, we are presenting as the physical body. okay? This physical body is made of gross matter, which evolved from the division and recombination of the subtle elements. So if you may, as you may remember, these elements, they appear, in the subtle realm, the subtle dimension, and then they begin divide, half of one part, and then one 12.25, if I remember well, no, 13, 12.25, now I got confused. But it's one half plus one eighth, and one eighth of the other elements. And that grossifies to become each one of these elements. Each one of the elements grossified contains the other elements, but in very small portions as well, okay? So it divides and recombines in the subtle level, and then it grossifies as the physical material elements, which are the primary physical material elements that brings about the constitution of our physical material body. The student has asked, what constitutes the not self? It's important to bear in mind that the description in this and the following verses giving in answer to that question, that big question, that complete question. The text is not providing a catalog of independently existing objects arising from an act of creation, but it's rather detailing appearing objects which, sought not separate from awareness, are misunderstood to be awareness. So meaning to say, awareness means the self. No? So the text is not providing a catalog of independently existing objects, because we know that all objects are resolved in consciousness, in the self. Everything is the self. And in this case, the physical body arises from an act of creation. Not arising from an act of creation, but it's rather detailing, appearing. Okay, and now I understand the point here. We are not presenting the body cataloged, independently, arising from an act of creation, but rather detailing apparent objects which sought not separate from awareness and misunderstood to be aware. So this is the fundamental misconception. So the awareness there is better understood as the word, with the word self. So the body, the physical body of the jiva, brings about this sense of individuality, and this, the famous ego, eu, I, mine, and my body, my mind, my thoughts, my mind. So this is misunderstood to be the real self. And this misunderstanding has a huge price, because we suffer only due to this fundamental misconception, misunderstanding. Because as we know, to believe that the body is a source of affliction in every sense. This misunderstanding comprises all that is not the self. This fundamental misunderstanding that I am this physical body, born out of karma, constituted by the division and recombination of the subtle elements. This body, is the self, is the I. The I is the body is the I. This is the fundamental misunderstanding that brings about, responsible for the human suffering. The verse begins with the physical body, which we are told is the result of karma. The body has been fashioned by certain of our past deeds, which also determine the time and place of its birth. It determines also its parentage and all the circumstances it will encounter. Isn't it amazing? When we talk about destiny, destiny is because when we are born, we are read, our past deeds, our past karma, our sanshitas are going to not only design, configure our physical body, but is going to place it in a proper family, in a proper womb, family, culture, society. Everything is determined by karma. Karma is everything. This body has been fashioned as the result of my karmas, which also determine the time, the place, and its parents, and all circumstances it will encounter. So it's everything is from the subtle to the denser, the whole thing. So this is the vasana, this is the sanchita karma, this is the karma in an individual, and it's going to produce the body and its environment, because the whole purpose here is to find a proper environment which is also custom designed to this body, which was custom designed by its vasanas, so that this perfect order can take place, and the same game goes on. We carry on the same game. You understand? I had this incredible insight early in my life. During those days, I lived close to Osho Rajneesh, that I had a huge karma hangover, or how you say hangover? I forgot the expression. With my mother, I had a lot of issues with my mother, and I had to work over my entire adult life those hangouts or hangovers or whatever. And then in Pune, I had the opportunity to do some work, and then a lot of things came up, and the whole thing started become clear to me. I had a lot of profound insights and some psychic things rolling. And then I got it clearly that I could never again blame my mother. That my mother was the product of my own mind, and I brought about this life circumstance so that I could learn some lessons. It was so beautiful. For the first time, I felt, oh my God, I have no resentment towards my mother. I got the mother which was perfect. I came from that background because at that point I knew I had clear insights of what was my previous life. And then I understood, oh my God, this mother was so perfect to me. And I thought that she was, the reason I was suffering. So that's more or less what it says here. Let's recall that the order of Ishvara is completely impersonal and unfailingly exact. So this Ishvara's order, as we say, is designed by pure knowledge, intelligence, and the most fundamental law governing the human jiva experience, because karma applies only to the human jivas. And the most important law is the law of karma, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. We have this free will, the ability to choose. The moment that we have this pain in the butt ability to choose, immediately we get a little bit shaken, oh my God, what a stress, I have to choose here, and then we immediately we begin taking responsibility for our actions and the result of our actions. So we are giving this, so we cannot be run as a program like other animals. And this order is so impersonal, it gives back to us what we have brought into the field in our previous births, and then it carries on. And there is nothing personal, it's just a machinery, a conscious being, a conscious live, entity or energy built, constituted by pure knowledge, intelligence, and benevolence, we say, and this being called Ishvara is absolutely impersonal. It's not a super jiva. It's just an order, pure, but it's a conscious being, but it's not a jiva. That's what gets us somewhat confused to wrap up our minds around that notion, It's a completely impersonal, but it's precise, you know. It is intelligent design. It's like a organic conscious computer, self-conscious computer, which is absolutely never ever subject to any virus or any kind of defect. You know, it works like boom, 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 boom. No mistake, no mistake. Such is the intelligence of this order. Shwara is completely impersonal and is precise. We may prefer a world in which we are absolved from the consequence of our actions, a world congenial to our desires and comprehensible to our intellect. In other words, a world designed for our personal gratification. So I want the world that I can somehow say, this is my world. That's why we do all these superimpositions, you know. I want to see the world, you know, according to my needs, according to my gratification, and so on. So no, the world was not designed for us from that standpoint. It is designed for the jivas because you cannot create a stage without player. Can you imagine a huge theater with a beautiful stage that was built for no players and for no play? No. So this stage of life is there for the jivas, of course, but it's not that the jivas can just, you know, have it its way. It serves the purpose for the jiva to understand its true, fundamental, free, independent nature as such as consciousness. That's the only purpose of this, you know, the Dharma field. It serves only this purpose. That's what the scriptures say, and then it makes sense. You know? But it's not just so that I can go there and get what I want and avoid what I don't want, and this I want, this I don't want. No, it's for us to learn and grow and be free. That is the, you know, why this stage is present to us. And we may think an injustice is visited upon us by God or the cosmos or society when we don't get what we want. So this is a childish way of living one's life, you know. It's like the delusion that I know the whole setup here serves the purpose of satisfying my desires, you know. And every time I don't get what I want, I feel that I'm victimized here. This is not fair, God, you know? And then I start fighting with God and with everybody around me because, you know, I'm not really getting what I want. This is the kind of immature personality, or way, you know, lifestyle, way of living one's life, you know. But we grow, we come into Vedanta, and we develop this clear understanding that spreads in our emotional body in the way that we no longer need to experience those infantile, childish emotion that, you know, I want what I want. I'm going to throw a tantrum here and I'm going to tell God to go, you know, and I'm going to look for another God. And we may think an injustice has visited upon us by God or the cosmos or society when we don't get what we want. But to complain about our lot in life is to misunderstand the order to which our bodies and minds belong. So our bodies and our minds belongs to Ishvara, belongs to the field. The entire body of Ishvara is the universe manifest of our body. Is just a small little thing. We need to bring things into proper perspective, you know. I'm just one among an infinity of other superimpositions of my own nature. I'm one among an infinity of names and forms of objects. So we need to see things correctly, and that's the purpose of this spiritual body of knowledge, to educate us spiritually to see Nietzsche as well from a proper, wise perspective. The law of karma ensures that everything is perfectly apportioned in this world, no matter how unsatisfactory it may appear to us from the standpoint of my desires and fears, my personal desire and fear. So you understand how important it is, the Karma Yoga here, because Karma Yoga is giving up our desires and fears at the altar of Dharma. No, I want to live not governed by my desires and fears, but I want to live according to this higher principle called Dharma. And in this process, all these emotional conflicts with the field, they start dissipating because now I just live from a platform of Dharma rather than my personal desire. Karma Yoga is the key to purify the mind. There is no purifier more natural, simple, and efficacious than Karma Yoga. So the law of karma ensures that everything is according to this meritorious system. You get what you deserve. We always get what we deserve. No matter how unsatisfactory it may appear to us. But we keep in mind this, no, this is all karma. This is what I deserve. This is a meritorious system. If it's coming to me, it belongs to me. We keep in mind that all the time we see things objectively, understand the laws, the most important law operating here. And then we are free of great affliction, The body is formed from a combination of the 5 gross elements, which have evolved from the subtle elements according to a determinate formula. But such details need not to concern us right now. The main point here is that the entire environment in which the body finds itself is perfectly suited to the individual's processing of karma. We come here to process karma. You understand? We come here, this is a field to process karma, to converting, karmas, vasanas, which are not really pure, which are not really conducive to our spiritual elevation into better and better and better vasanas. So the main point here is that the entire environment around us, it's perfectly suited to my individual's karma and for my growth, for my working my karma. And the body is the gross object, is a gross object among the other gross objects. It is perceived as all such objects by the subtle body, which is taken up in the next verse. Beautiful. So it closed, the verse closed saying that it's made of the gross matter, the body, which evolved from the division or combination of the subtle body. The subtle body is coming next, but the interesting aspect of this last phrase is the body is a gross object among an infinity of other gross objects. As I have mentioned that, at the beginning here. So we have all these objects. We are one among an infinity of other objects. And all these objects are perceived by what? By the subtle body. My subtle body. It has 5 sense receptors, sense organs of reception. We receive the world, through these doors, these gates. So we receive that, and the subtle body integrates it, and then we are just experiencing the physical material world, all gross objects, and our body is as well another gross object like any other. I mean, I looked at the body of Claudio here, and I see he's an object. And then I cannot delude myself and look at my body and say, but this body is the subject. No, it's not the subject. It's an object. No, it's physical, material object. I can see it the same way I see the body of Claudio. The only difference is that the body of Claudio does not appear in my bed every morning when I get up, and this one appears in my bed every morning when I get up. And then I have an impression, oh, this is my body, you know. But it's just an object like any other. In all these objects, indifferentially, they just appear where? Appear in the subtle body. All such objects are perceived by the subtle body, in the subtle body, which is taken up in the next verse. Anything about this verse? Yes, David?
Do you feel that there's that the subtle body without the physical body? So after the physical body dies, the subtle body, does the subtle body have a sense of of I, of being separate, having that that dilemma, if you will, of feeling separate when it's really not?
Yeah, I mean the subtle body, when not associated with the physical body, it still may have a sense of I. The same way we dream, and many times when we dream, we have the sense of I instead of it or he or she, you know? So we have both experience usually. Sometimes in the dream, we see ourselves objectively or see ourselves subjectively. Okay? When we see subjective, we are panicking, we are living the drama of the dream. And sometimes we see it. So we may have a sense of I there, okay? But this I, when it's not hooked, anchored to the physical body, it does not have any means to interact with the field and works its karmas. In order for us to grow, we need to be associated with the physical body. Why? Because although inside of my mind, inside of the subtle body, I have the 5 organs of perception, reception, perception, and 5 organs of actions, I'm deprived of the 5 instruments of actions and 5 instruments of perception. So I have no means to really interact with an objective reality such as the Dharma field, the projection called the world, the universe, you know, the environment, physical material environment. So I don't have that. So how I'm going to have some fun if I don't have the body? Oh no, I want to enjoy myself even if I don't have the body. Okay, so we're going to enjoy ourselves the same way we have some experience in the dream state. So in the dream state, what we experience? We experience the content, the emotional, mental contents of our own mind. You know? So our vasana, it keeps projecting itself in the dream states. You understand? So what is the good of experiencing my own material, you know? It's just, I mean, it's like recycling something, you know? I'm just experiencing my own vasanas, my own vasanas, my own vasanas. People say that, I mean, the scriptures say that by experiencing your own vasanas, once dissociate from the physical body, there is still a process of of uh, exhausting. I say exhausting. Huh? One still burns or exhausts certain vasanas, certain karmas. You understand? Why? Because I'm not really interacting. I'm not really learning anything, but I am exhausting. I'm exhausting some of my karmas. You know. But it's all about subjective experience. I am experiencing my own mental emotional contact, my own projection, my own vasanas, you understand? So it does not do any good, you understand? Because we don't have a field in which we can transact and learn new lessons. We are just like a tape record in the old days. Sometimes we would get stuck and and then after some time it just jumps and go into something else.
Well, then does it make sense? I'm sorry, but to continue, just if you're in the subtle body, then the intellect, the ability to make choices,
No,
doesn't
you
follow the subtle body. It follows only the physical body.
no. We in that we the subtle body not associated with the physical body does not have much of this any of this discriminating power. You know. So in order for us to be able to discriminate, we need to be in contact with the physical material field so that we can really objectively discriminate. Otherwise, up there, so try to see in a deep sleep or in a dream state how rudimentary is our discrimination there, you know, generally speaking. Yeah? So we don't have much of that intelligent intellect in our, you know, I mean, we are fooled by our own vasanas sometimes, and then we wake up in the middle of the night like, oh my God, thanks God, it was a dream. So this is the first question I asked Ranji when I met him in person. This is exact question because I want to know when I leave this body, can I continue growing up and just going like that? Can I keep growing and get enlightened without the body? And he did not give much energy to me because he does not like to go into this kind of exoteric stuff. But he just said, no. You're gonna it's just you're gonna experience your own subjective vasanas and so on. You can, in order to grow, you need to come here. And then later on, I start, you know, think about that, and then it all became clear, like it often happens to us. You know, this we're gonna have this insights and clarities, and the peace come together. Verse 28. The subtle body is composed of the 5 organs of perception, the 5 organs of action, the 5 physiological functions, the pranas, the 5 subtle elements, beginning with space, and then all the others, air, fire, water, da, da, da. It's also composed by the ego, the mind, the intellect, the memory. It's composed by ignorance. It's composed also by desire and action. Oh my God, I did not know that my subtle body had so many parts. Then this verse, it really exaggerates about this subtle body. Now I'm going to have a big ego, you know. I say, oh my God, I have all of this. This is all mine. So the subtle body is composed of the 5 organs of perception. We all understand that. Huh? So we perceive the world, and one thing our instruments of perception, another thing our organs of perception. The organs of perception belong to the subtle body. The instruments of perception, the physical instrument, they belong to the physical body. The physical body is the not self. The subtle body is also the not self. But the subtle body is composed by these 5 organs of perception. It's composed by the 5 organs of action, which is different from the 5 instruments of action. It's also composed by the 5 physiological functions, you know, the pranic, the pranas, the vital air systems, you know. So this vital energy is dynamic. It's basically, it's born out of intense rajaguna, rajas, you know. This energy is energetic, intelligent, designed, vital air. You know, this in Christianity they say that it's the breath of life, of life. Huh? God, when He wants to create the human being, after He has the field complete, and then He got some clay or some argilla or whatever, and then design a man, and then throw some air to the human being, and the human being was alive. Huh? So this is very nicely symbolic, of this element that a lot of the time is confused as the self. A lot of people think that the prana is the self because we see when the prana goes out, poof, the body begins decomposing. But no, this prana is another aspect of the not self. It's just air which comes out of space. Space produces air, and this is an intelligent design air, vital air. It has this intelligent that is custom designed to operate all these different jivas. And this air is different for every creature, So a crocodile is going to have a different vital air because it's going to be operating a different machinery, different piece of equipment, Such is the beauty of this creation. So we have these 5 organs of perception. We have the 5 organs of action. We have the pranas, the physiological systems, function. And then we have the 5 subtle elements, as we say. The subtle body is called subtle because there we have the 5 primary elements in its subtle formation, They're all there, yet they did not divide and recombined. So they are there as the 5 pure subtle elements. All of that is in our subtle body. And then it has the ego, as we know, it's just another function. All this subdivision of the subtle body is nothing but different functions, because the subtle body is a single organism, It's one single organism. So we don't have really these parts, but they have different functions to it. 5 physiological functions, the 5 subtle elements. The ego, as we know. So the mind, I like to talk a little bit about the mind first, because the mind is the gateway of the world field that enters, the stimulus coming from the field enters the subtle body through the mind. Mind is that function that integrates the impressions coming from the sense perceptive organ, and then it questions, and then it emotes it gives it some emotion, and then it activates the intellect and the ego to present a response. Because life is nothing but a stimulant response. So we have the mind receiving the stimulus coming from the field. We have the intellect. The intellect is that aspect that once the mind has presented the situation, then the intellect has to come up with a resolve. It has to come with a solution here. So now what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in Italy and take this vaccination, or I'm going to take a plan in a month or so and go back to Brazil to turn my life upside down? You know what I mean? So the intellect is going to take that decision, for example, And then once the intellect make a decision, and then there is another aspect of our mind, which is the sense of doership that owns the decision of the intellect. The ego actually thinks, I decide, I felt. It thinks, oh no, I felt it. I got the impression, I got the stimulus coming, I felt, I decided, and now I am the doer. So this doer, this sense of doership that believes that he is the thinker of the thought and the decider of the decision, the owner of its emotion. This is all the aspect of our subtle body that somehow identifies with the equipment, identifies with the equipment as the receiver and as the responder, the one who responds to the field. It's just the one that says, okay, this is my machinery, this is my piece of equipment. So we have the mind, we have the intellect, we have the ego, and then we have our memory system that some texts of ours present some memory system as well as another function of the subtle body. It's all integrated in our chart from Ramji, the chart that Ramji, so brilliantly brought about, made it possible for us. We have the mind there, and the mind encompasses. I was mixing up things here. Some of our texts present the mind apart from its emotions. So in our chart, we bring the mind and the emotions together. In some other texts, they present the memory as part integrated of the intellect. And here we are splitting, in this verse, we are splitting the memory system from the intellect. So the intellect needs its memory system, the files. The intellect, how the intellect works, it receives this input, this first impression from the emotion, from the emotions, from the mind, from the thought mind. So it presents for the intellect. And the intellect, how is intellect going to bring about a decision? It has to consult its files. It has to go there. Okay, let me see. So I remember, 7 days ago or 7 years ago, I have been through something similar, and I have tried this and tried that, and this is what my memory file says. So take this one, boom, and then I decide based on my memory system. Okay, so this is another function of our subtle body. And then there is something very interesting, that is ignorance. And desire and all the actions, they are byproduct of this ignorance, of course, although we are meant to act, but to act based on a desire to complete ourselves or myself is not something intelligent, but it is a byproduct of ignorance. This ignorance brings about the desires and fears, and the desires and fears, unfortunately, motivates the jiva to act. We act based on our likes and dislikes, my desires and fears. That's what most people do, which is a life living from the standpoint of ignorance. This ignorance is universal, and it's the reason of this ignorance is, as we say, the inclusions, because the subtle bodies is highly sattvic. There is a lot of sattva there, So, but there are inclusions of rajas and tamas. So these rajas and tamas in the subtle body are responsible for this ignorance. It's always there. It's ignorance. It's in this subtle dimension, and it is somehow conditioning our subtle body in a way that it veils it it veils us. And since we cannot see, it's like the twilight zone. We have a lot of rajas and tamas, which is this power tamas that somehow conceals, veils us, and we don't see exactly. We cannot really see that I'm just before a cord, a rope, So I can't really see things as they are because of this power called tamas. And then immediately, automatically, simultaneously, I come with a solution, and then I superimpose the snake, the serpent. The snake is a superimposition due to this other aspect of what we call ignorance. Again, ignorance is rajas and tamas, the power to conceal and the power to project, and we do it all the time. Most of the mistakes we do in life, in our interactions with the field, are due to this universal ignorance operating in our subtle body, rajas and tamas. This is integral part of our subtle body, ignorance, which brings about the desire, which is the motives of all our actions. And desires, as we know, they can be negative desires or positive desires. The positive desires, I want things to complete myself. The negative desires is I don't want things, or I want to avoid things to complete myself, right? So we push what I don't want, and I try to grab what I want. But these are all different aspects of the same energy called desire.
Arlindo, may I ask a question at this point?
Please.
I've had some confusion in different parts of
Okay.
they talk about ignorance, and then they discriminate the avidya from the ignorance, and I'm still a little unclear about avidya. Is that superimposition, whereas ignorance is the, I don't get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, we say that Maya is ignorance. Okay. Maya brings about duality. It brings about this duality in something which is just pure, limitless, non-dual consciousness, awareness. Okay. So it is ignorance, and when it's from the macrocosm, from the perspective of the total, we call it the beautiful, the complex, the intelligent ignorance that brings about diversities of names and forms appearing, on awareness, and then when that magic operates, when the jiva comes into place, and then it operates in the jiva, and then from the jiva standpoint, we call it avidya. Okay, but the jiva is the one suffering from this personal inability or ignorance due to the inclusions of rajas and tamas in his or her subtle body. So we call avidya when it is refers to this personal ignorance of the individual jiva that can be removed by the means of this spiritual knowledge. Understand? That's the distinction between this overall ignorance, this beautiful, intelligent ignorance, which is Maya, But ignorance is ignorance only to the extent that it is deceiving or fooling some other principle. Another principle. And the other principle is the jiva, because the jiva really, takes duality to be reality, takes itself to be the body. It reverses the relationship between the subject and the object, and then the jiva is the one who suffers of this avidya problem. So let's see what the commentaries say here. At this point, the text lists those aspects of the not self included in the subtle body as distinguished from the physical body. The subtle body will later be subject to more detailed analysis, but now we are engaged in setting up the catalog, so to speak. As I said, the subtle body is not really made of parts, but it somehow exercises different functions. That's all. It's because ignorance takes these aspects of the subtle body to be real that they need to be clearly delineated. Ultimately, the illusory nature will be demonstrated. The subtle body is not at any time real. Okay, the subtle body is not at all real. So we know what is our definition of reality. Reality is that which is always ever present and never modified from one moment to another, from one year to another, from one universe to another, from one creation to another. So the subtle body, on the other hand, it's changing all the time. So we can see that the functions of a subtle body, they change according to the change of the proportions of these three energies, which influence the five subtle elements as well. Everything there is changed because of the fundamental change of the proportions of these three energies and consequently the elements and so on. So everything moves because these three energies are the building blocks in which, everything is constructed, including our subtle body, this subtle realm of our personal existence. So this subtle body is not real. It's changing, but it has some aspects to itself that almost seems to be real from the standpoint of time. We say that the subtle body is almost eternal. That's why we have this expression as well about the eternal jiva. The jiva is an eternal principle that is all the time in place. These three principles are all the time there, either as potential, unmanifest, or manifest. And these three principles are Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. So those are three eternal principles. They exist beginninglessly. Okay? So the subtle body is there. And that's why in certain cultures, like in India, the people have this faith in the Vedas and they believe that they will never going to run out of their existence. They're going to live forever because life is just, a cycle of rebirth after rebirth and after rebirth. They say, no problem, I'm just leaving my karma here. When I go, Ishvara is going to give another body and then I will come and I'm going to get another karma and another life, another circumstance, set of circumstance. So the subtle body never really dies, as few times we have determined. When the subtle body leaves the physical body dies. But the subtle body is eternal or beginningless. It's not completely eternal, but there is a sense that the subtle body is almost like the self, because the self is beginningless, is the only reality. But then Maya, which is the first aspect of the not self, comes into existence as a talent, as a power inherent to awareness, not apart from consciousness, but yet not consciousness. No, Maya is very difficult to be explained, but this Maya is there. And then out of Maya, we have another three principles that are beginningless and relatively eternal. Eternal. One of them is Ishvara, and then we have the Jiva, and then we have the world, the universe, and they exist forever. They beyond time, okay, beyond this time, space, dimension. So we live there as the subtle body. The only thing that makes us say that the subtle body is not really eternal, therefore it can be rejected as not the self, besides the fact that the subtle body changes from moment to moment, but it's also the fact that the subtle body is bound by time. But how so? Because we just said that it's eternal. It is eternal unless we kill it. So the jiva can kill the subtle body. How? It's going to kill the subtle body by the means of self-knowledge. So self-knowledge can bring the end to the subtle body. The subtle body, although it is beginningless, it can be put to an end. But then again, we say, oh, but why to kill the poor creature, So it's just enjoying this samsara chakra, this cycle again, another one, another round. But, believe me or not, some of these jiva come to a point that they are so fed up with samsara, and say, no, I want to get out of this game. So it's very easy to confuse the subtle body with the self, because there are all these connotations that we're going to live forever because we're not going to go anywhere, which is almost the case, but not really the case. Also because the jiva is never going to be the same jiva, although the subtle body is the same subtle body, or the vasanas. So it is because ignorance takes these aspects of the body to be real that they need to be clear and delineated. Ultimately, the illusory nature will be demonstrated. The subtle body is not real at all. Recall that although the text is now dealing with the not self, it has not retreated from nor qualified its assertion that the self alone is real. So this text is now dealing with the not self. It has not retreated from nor qualified its assertion. Wow, what a complicated language this friend of ours sometimes uses. Huh? when I did this text in Tiro, I had some friends that were trying to help me and translate this in kind of simple language. So recall that although the text is now dealing with the not self, so the subtle body is not self, it has not retreated from nor qualified its assertion that the self alone is real. Thank you very much. You could have said that in a more simple language, right? So the following is a description of ignorance. Before the five elements become gross and manifest as the physical objects, including the body, they exist in a subtle form that cannot be perceived by the senses. Before the five elements, those constitutes of our subtle body, before the five elements grossify to become the manifest physical elements, which is going to, to bring about our body, they exist in our subtle body, the subtle form that cannot be perceived by the sense. So our sense, which is just a function of the subtle body, has the ability to see everything below its domains. It can see everything, below, but it cannot see itself. We cannot really, through our sense organs, see our mind, We'll see the mind of somebody else. We'll see the five elements in its subtle form, constituting my mind. I cannot really see my memory system. I can just sense it, but not really through the five elements. Cannot be perceived by the sense. Every subtle element has three qualities: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Every subtle element has three qualities. So we have each one of these five elements, and each one is constituted by these three energies. Sattva is light and intelligent. Light and intelligence. It's responsible for light and intelligence. Rajas is what produces desire and activity. Tamas is symbolized by darkness, but also by stability, groundedness, basiness. It grossifies to become ground, the ground of creation. So tamas is darkness and stability. The five organs of action arise from the rajas aspect of the five subtle elements. So all the five organs of actions, they are constituted by the by the five elements, but they are taken by the rajasic aspect of each one of these elements. Remember that we're saying that every one of these elements are constituted by the three energies. The energies that are building in each one of these elements. The tamatra is up there, in the subtle body, not grossified yet. Every one of them has these three energies. So when we need to create, to bring about our organs of actions, we get the raja aspect of all the five elements. And as we can see, the organs of actions require a lot of rajas. We need this raja energy because we need to move things. you know. So to move the body around, it requires a lot of these rajas. And these rajas, they are just extracted by the rajasic aspect of each one of those 5 elements in the subtle body. You remember that the subtle body has the 5 organs of actions. It's not physical, but these 5 organs of action requires energy, and they draw it from the rajasic aspect of each one of these elements. So these organs of actions, the speech that comes out of the rajasic aspect of space. So we have space, and then we bring the rajasic aspect of the space, and then what we have? A space that talks, you know, speech. So beautifully designed. We have the hands, which is built, it is extracted by the rajasic aspect of the air subtle element. The legs from the fire, the same way. The sex organ from the water, and the anus from the earth. The rajas aspect of the subtle elements also give rise to what? This is an easy one to understand. We know that our physiological system is highly dynamic. This vital air, that intelligent design that goes about taking care of our autonomous system, it requires a lot of rajas, so it also draws its intelligence from the rajas aspect of these 5 elements. And then it constitutes this really, really cool, intelligent, dynamic, vital air that's going to operate our systems. So we have all of that coming from the rajasic aspects of the five subtle elements. So these physiological systems, which are often called the 5 pranas, are respiration, digestion, assimilation, circulation, and the expulsion of the subtle body from the physical body at time of death. So it has these different systems. One, it allows us to breathe. Another one is going to arrive our digestion, our assimilation of the food, the circulation of our body, and the expulsion of the subtle body. Not only the subtle body, but sometimes we have something in our body that it's not in harmony with our body, and it has to be expelled. And that is done by the same system that just helps us to throw up something or something like that. So these 5 pranas are respiration, digestion, assimilation, circulation, and the expulsion of unwanted elements, And it's used at the time of this departure or this divorce between the subtle body and the physical body, because it takes a huge amount of this prana energy to take, the subtle body from the physical body. Why? Because the subtle body developed a relationship with the physical body and became what? Attached. It does not want to let go of that physical body, which already began its process of the composition, So it needs a huge amount of energy to make that breakup, And some people, they have a hard time to let go of the body. There are some subtle bodies that cling to the body. In Italy, there is a nice saying. It says, fa fatica nascere, ma fa fatica morire. Tu hai sentito già questo, Claudio? No? No? But perché dice, to be born, it takes a lot of effort to be born, because, you see the baby, poor baby, sometimes 24 hours, have to be trying, no, I'm coming, I have to fight, and the baby, and then when he comes already green or almost dead. So a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work to be born. But then there is this sense, this proverb says, but it's a lot of hard work to die as well. Why? And I have seen it with some people here, some people that they were clinically dead, but they did not want to die. We were there. It's an uncle of Silvia many years back. We are there waiting for the poor soul to die, and the poor soul will not die. They say, no, it's a question of hours. And then the afternoon goes, the night goes, the morning goes, and the thing is still breathing. He does not want to let go of the body. So it's sometimes it requires this energy that he say, hey, come on, it's time to go. I'm going to give you another piece of equipment later on. Don't worry. From the and now we're going to look into the sattvic aspect of the 5 elements. From the sattvic aspect of the 5 elements, the 5 subtle elements, they are there. They are not grossified yet. They exist in the subtle dimension. Okay, they are just pure thought, intelligence, energy, however we want to put it. They did not manifest. They are just ideas in the mind of God, so to speak. Okay. From the sattva aspect of the 5 subtle elements, what it comes? Comes the sense organs, our sense perceptive organs, our receptors of the field. So, of course, as a receiver, do we need a lot of rajas to receive? I come to your house, I say, okay, I'm bringing nice presents and a nice bottle of wine for you. I don't need to do anything, I just receive. So when we receive, we don't need much rajas. When we talk about the subtle body, so tamas is almost useless in the subtle body. You understand? There is some tamas there just to give us a hard time to conceal our minds so that we make mistakes in our readings of the situation, but besides that, we need rajas to make this machine running, and we need sattva to receive. We need rajas to, develop the organs of action so that we can respond. We need rajas, to activate our systems. But when we come to be the receiver, our receiving personality called the bhakta. As the bhakta, we don't need much rajas. All we need is what? Sattva. Because you have to be really so cool and intelligent to do that job of receiving these stimuli and just combine them together until you have an experience that you can relate to. It's just so cool. So therefore, from the sattva aspect of these 5 elements in our subtle body, we bring about the 5 sense organs. So we're going to go there, okay, space, give it to me. I'm going to pull the sattvic aspect of your existence, and I'm going to constitute my hearing function here, in my subtle body. So hearing comes from space, but it's not going to come from the rajasic aspect of space that gave origin to the pranas. It's going to come from the sattvic aspect of space, okay? And then it's going to give birth or origin to my ability to receive, to capture, sound. So, and then the same thing from the air. From the air, we're going to develop the sense of tat. So tat, we pull from the air, but we pull the sattvic aspect of air, and then we pull the sattvic aspect of fire to bring about our sight, sense organ. And then the same with water, we pull the sattvic aspect of water in its sattva formation, and then we develop the taste organ, sense organ. And the same thing with the small, we go there and we pull the sattvic aspect of the earth, and then we construct our how you say this sense? Huh? I don't want to say
Smell.
huh?
Smell.
Smell?
Smell.
No.
Yeah.
There is another word, no? No? Only smell?
Smell. Smell.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
the smell.
Olfactory.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I knew, because in Portuguese I know that there is some a more sophisticated word. Yeah, the sense of olfact, you know, the sense we're going to receive the beautiful smell. I mean, not all the smells are beautiful except to our minds, you know, but there are so many beautiful fragrances in the earth, so we need a receptor, you know, and this is our olfact. Okay, from the fundamental sattva aspect, integrating all the elements comes what? The intellect. So the intellect, we need the fundamental sattva aspect, integrating all the elements. So the most fundamental aspect of sattva, it's almost you deprive sattva of most, you deprive the elements of most of its sattva, you know, portions. Because what? The intellect is the subtler aspect, the subtle function of our subtle body, and it's built of an even finer and finer and finer sattva guna. You know, you need a lot of sattva. This is the most subtle, the most refined aspect of our subtle body, and it extracts the most fundamental aspect of each one, sattvic aspect of all those elements. So we need, when we take the sattvic aspects of the elements to build our sense organs, we need to be careful because we need to keep most of it for our intellect. Integrating all the elements comes the intellect, which can be differentiated by the modes. The intellect can be differentiated by the modes. 1, sat, rich. 2, manas. Manas is that aspect of the intellect, you know, that doubts. So in this case here, this explanation is integrating the intellect with the mind, basically. You understand? The function of the mind, which is to doubt, and the function of the intellect, which is to determine, to decide. In fact, in this text of the Vivekachudamani, almost through this text, the intellect and the ego, they are present as one organism. But now here is different. Now it's presenting the two aspects of the intellect being the sat and 2 manas. Doubt. Oh yeah, it's doubt. That's a different thing. Thought and doubt. Yeah. Those are 2 aspects of the mind, usually we say. That's what is interesting. Let me read it again. From the fundamental sattva aspect, integrating all the elements, we bring about the intellect, which can be differentiated by the modes. 1, the thoughts, the vrits, and the other, the doubts, desires, and emotion. 3, the resolve, and 4, memory, and the 5th, ahankara. Okay, I understood. So we have presented the intellect, antahakara. We have presented the intellect as basically the entire functions of the subtle body, except the organs of actions and the organs of perceptions and the pranas. So when we come there, and then we have these 3, 4 functions, actually so one function is the thoughts that happens in the mind, and then the same mind is going to doubt and emote, and that's why I call doubt, desire, and emote, and then the intellect comes and resolves, stands for the resolve, and then we have the chitta, which is the memory, and then we have the ego. So now we present all of that as the buddhi, as the intellect. This entire subtle body is made of the most fundamental, aspects, sattva aspects of the 5 elements, and most of it goes into building these functions of the subtle body. That's why we say that subtle body fundamentally is made out of, is highly constituted by sattva. Although some aspects of the subtle body is constituted by a fair amount of rajas, as we have seen. So does anybody have anything to say about this? Or we can move on. Also found in the subtle body are ignorance, avidya, desire, kama, and action, karma. All of that build into the subtle body. Ignorance in this context refers to the imposition of values upon objects mentioned in previous verse. We attribute awareness, our true nature, to the objects that appear in awareness. So this reversion, that of seeing myself in the body object, for example, see myself in the world, or believe that I'm a part or product of matter, this inversion, this reversion, is what we call avidya. Ignorance in this context refers to the imposition of values upon objects mentioned in the previous verse. We attribute awareness itself, which is our nature, to be an object. This leads to the desire for those objects. So this fundamental ignorance brings about this inversion, in the values, and the subject is seen by the jiva as the object, and the vice versa. And this leads to what? This ignorance. So now the self appears to be the object called I, the body, I, the mind, the body-mind. So the moment that I define myself as the body-mind, what happens? Do I feel whole, full, and complete? No. I feel small, incomplete, and inadequate because, every mind is made out of those constituents, that are complete and so on, and it's not perfect, and it's not really all-knowing, and so on. So the moment that I'm under the spell of this fundamental ignorance, Maya, and then I fall into avidya, and then I immediately begin desiring for object. And this desire leads to what? Leads to a lot of running around, running to gain, running to avoid. It's just running. So this fundamental problem of desire leads to actions which perpetuates the cycle of karma that constitutes samsara. The cycle, continuous cycle called samsara. Desire, and then an action, moved by the desire, and then more vasana, or the same vasana, or a slight modified vasana, or transformed vasana. But this is the cycle. That samsara, we can see samsara as this will representing the cycle of life, birth, life, death, and rebirth. But it can see as the cycle of all our desires and fears, as their tendency, their vasta, they appears as a small itching, or of desire, and then desire they becomes, my words, and then they become my deeds, and then I'm back again which reinforce the vasana, for example, So this is the cycle that constitutes what the scriptures call bondage. And that way we have concluded the verse 28. And it's 9:30. We can play a question if anyone has a question. Okay. So it seems that all questions were resolved. Maybe I did the okay job today. So we can close our evening. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Thank you all. Much love to all. And I may come to visit you, Vidya, before we leave, huh?
Good.
Okay.
Great.
Love to all. See you next
Okay,
time.
much love. Bye bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Ciao, grazie.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Good night.